Some people really should not wear hats. Merry Christmas, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Speed Cafe Summer Grill. Greg Rust and Greg Murphy with you, all brought to you with thanks to our good friends at KTM who are ready to race. I cannot wear this any longer.
Can we get serious, please, Greg?
Well, let's get serious, shall we? We're going to talk some proper Formula One now with none other than Mark Webber, who unfortunately is spending Christmas Day in quarantine, but he's been good enough to join us. Mark, welcome.
Hey guys.
Hey, let's start with what was a crazy 2020 Formula One season, the way the sport regrouped after what happened with Melbourne, the way that they were able to stage events sometimes in back-to-back or quick succession, new venues that they went to. They actually did a really good job, Mark, to get a solid season under the belt, didn't they?
Well, absolutely extraordinary, Rusty. I think that you know, the intensity that the sport has in general, that we know how they go about the competition. I think they took that sort of mentality into dealing with how they're going to get through this from a commercial sense, from operational, through to finding venues and new promoters, new tracks. I think it was you know, a godsend. I mean, when you work hard, you find the right solutions, and I think they found that with Dietrich Mateschitz in starting the season in the Red Bull Ring in Austria, having a back-to-back there, knowing that, you know, they've got the airstrip close by. You know, a lot of their hotels in the area are owned by Red Bull, so that was really easier to control in terms of sort of a lot of compliance and the sort of, I suppose, constipation around and the nerves around that time of getting such events underway. And they really broke the back of the sort of the, I suppose, the nervousness around starting the season, which went well. And then off it went. And I think that having, you know, the back-to-backs, as I say, the opportunity to stay pretty much within Europe. I mean, it was probably the easiest season the drivers have ever done in terms of jet lag anyway. But in terms of the most events they've done in a short period of time, you know, it was pretty intense. But it was a real feather in F1's cap to be able to still pull off a great championship for everyone concerned, not just the drivers, but the fans, the people working in the industries, the cottage industries that are involved commercially, that, you know, just would have killed a lot of businesses if the sport didn't go on. So it was such a good news story from this year. Yeah.
Did you enjoy seeing the championship go back to racetracks that weren't on the calendar? You know, having to try and find race meetings or race venues to go to that weren't even considered before. Did you enjoy seeing them actually go to places that had been off for a long time? Yeah,
a lot of them, as you know, mate, they're quite traditional venues. I've driven races there in the past in Formula One. Portimao didn't exist when I was competing in Formula One, but it also came on the calendar. So yeah, Imola, Mugello, Portimao, there's some absolute crackers. Turkey back on. So some real, let's say, I suppose, sort of old school sort of circuits, not with these, you know, quite sanitized sort of curbing and runoffs and all those type of things. So yeah, it was nice. I think a change of scenery for the boys too, to go somewhere different. I think simulation-wise as well, they had to, you know, a bit of a cold start. There's not much of a run-up at some of those venues in terms of prep, from archive perspectives, in terms of looking at what sort of data you got to look back at. So it was good. It was a shame, of course, you know, because again, all those venues would have had a huge amount of people, you know, because the thirst for having an event back in those areas is so high. And you know, that's why the reason they got on the calendar was because they were keen to have the sport back, but they couldn't extend that to the fans, which was a bit of a shame.
Back when you first started in the sport, you know, you got to race against Michael Schumacher. I think the bulk of us, Mark, would have thought it was nigh on impossible in the relative short term that someone would equal his tally, to score 7 world championships as Lewis Hamilton has now done, to chalk up, you know, a tally of race wins like Michael did. It's a remarkable feat, and I don't think everyone stops to fully appreciate the greatness of the bloke sometimes. Yes, it's a great car and a great team, but he is a remarkable athlete, mate, isn't he?
Absolutely, Rusty. I think, you know, I agree with all that. I think that when I was competing around the same time as Michael, you know, in those cars in the mid-2000s, which were real beasts, and seeing how Michael went about his profession was extraordinary. Both Monday to Friday as a professional and executing, you know, on the racetracks on the weekend. He was very clinical, very Germanic, computerized sort of, you know, how he would go about, you know, performing those incredible consistent results, and then season on season, world championships, and you think there's no one's going to match that. Well, Lewis has arrived. We knew from day one when he arrived. I remember following him in Jerez in '07, the first time I was on the track with him, and we were out in mixed conditions. And it was sort of slicks and inters, and we were both out on slicks at the time, and just sort of saying, well, this guy, he was behind me at the time, and I was going, I can't drop this guy. He's got no experience, and this guy's like, he's actually just, marking me very, 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 very easily. And I was just like, wow. I hope this guy goes on to do something special, because he's making me look pretty average. But in the end, he is. I think that people in the industry, to your point, Rusty, about people are sort of, trivialising what he's achieved. I think people in the industry, we know what he's done. And the guy is special. His mistake factor is very, very low. He's wheel to wheel, incredibly fair. You can question how Michael went about that often. Michael did overstep the mark. We saw lots of funky moves from him which were uncalled for, and also that, he might not have, he didn't need to do. That was a frustrating thing. Michael was so good that we were often frustrated as a competitor or fans watching it, saying he doesn't need to have done some of the things that he did. But just the intensity with Michael sometimes pushed him over the edge. But Ross Brawn calls it some of the reboots. I think that he needed a reboot. But Lewis never had any of those moments. He just was so, still is, insanely fast. We saw that drive in Turkey where he wrapped the championship up, was just, that was an ice rink for 2 hours. And he just, as the race went on, he just ramped that back end of the Grand Prix up and just started picking off the guys with low experience. When they had to make the big calls, they made all the wrong calls. And Hamilton made all the right calls again.
Is Ferrari the disappointment of the season? Can you understand what is going on there? And obviously Sebastian Vettel has finished up his tenure there, but that has been a weird-looking red team this year.
Yeah, you're right, mate. I think it's pretty obvious. Last year they had a sort of a different interpretation of the engine regulations, and they had a big engine in the back. And when you take out that much horsepower, all of a sudden your life becomes quite challenging, and you've got to start peeling some downforce back off, and all of a sudden the whole concept of the car becomes very, very challenging to take to different venues on different compounds, and the working range of the car becomes very, very average. And that's what we're seeing this year. The curtains have been rolled back, and we can see them, in the brutal light of day, that they have not got a car that, from aerodynamically and from a chassis perspective, that was being pulled along last year to a sort of artificial level. That's over, and that was horrible to watch. But that's where Formula One, again, it doesn't wait for anyone. It doesn't matter what suit you got on or what sort of badges on the side of the car. If you're not putting the sort of engineering prowess in the right areas, then you're exposed quickly.
If anyone was ever in any doubt about the safety of the modern generation Formula One cars, the advent, the inclusion of things like Halo, it was absolutely vindicated, Mark, when we got to Bahrain and that incredible, frightening crash for Romain Grosjean.
Yeah, it was a sickening crash. I was in the commentary box with David Coulthard, and DC nearly broke my shoulder when because we just were like, he hit me that hard, and he's like, because we all thought that that's going to be a really, really challenging one to walk away from. And I think that even we knew that sort of 20, 30 seconds afterwards, even though we hadn't seen the footage of him walking away, but we were very concerned. Clearly at the time, the impact was nasty, the angle was nasty, the sort of articulation around how the barriers opened up and sort of however the fuel cell opened, whether it was the hatch or the sort of the bottom section of it. But then we had the fire, which was just, we haven't seen that since, I think, Gerhard Berger, all those years ago in Imola, in a similar sort of, the intensity of it anyway. So, mate, you're right. The Halo, the recovery team, I mean, Alan van der Merwe and Ian Roberts, who's the doctor, they took the shortcut through turn one, which, again, that's Formula One thinking. They just look at all different ways to make it, as efficiently and as safe as they can to do their job at the highest possible standard. And even that shortcut through turn one off the start, they'd take behind the rest of the field. They got up there that 4 or 5 seconds earlier. They could control give the fire marshal the confidence where to spray. All those things just sort of crescendoed into a really perfect scenario in a crucial environment where the clock was ticking in a really nasty way, that they could get him out in a safe environment and that he could walk away just with some burns on his hands.
I think it's a reminder of the fact that you cannot be prepared you know, as much as you look at a circuit and you look to make it safe as possible, I mean, there's just things, you just cannot cater for every conceivable situation that can occur. Just quickly though, mate, Daniel Ricciardo, give us sort of your thoughts around Dan and his season and his move.
Yeah, I think he drove awesome this year, mate. I think he, you know, and I've actually personally spent more time with Daniel than ever this year, and it's been quite good to see him. You know, he's enjoyed this year. I don't know if it's more than ever. It's because there's a bit, not less pressure, but it's just because he really felt valued at the team, and he's going to feel that again, I think, at McLaren next year. So that's sort of the step away from you know, where he was at Red Bull, and I think he did what he advertised he was going to do at Renault, and that's what he is. He's an infectious character. He lifted Enstone. They really did a good job. He carried the team effectively this year. They made very little errors, and he'll take that to McLaren. So I think Daniel's stock is still tremendous. We know that. And, yeah, he's good for the sport. We need him more towards the front. You know, he's a guy that needs to be on the podiums. He's a guy that sort of, you know, he celebrates success. He celebrates what our sport, you know, in essence should be about, is the characters. So let's see. I think McLaren, good injection of cash there, just with some new people injecting some new money into the company there, and you know the extra, you know, P3 in the championship. I think it's another 6 million or 8 million quid for them. So all that stuff helps for them to give them the confidence to give him a good car next year.
Can we finish, I think, with Sebastian Vettel? He was your teammate naturally at Red Bull. You and Murph have talked about Ferrari there a moment ago. He's off to new pastures this year in 2021. The red side of things didn't necessarily work out for him, but he'll bring a lot to that new opportunity. Will it reinvigorate him, and will it kind of work for him, do you reckon?
Well, we hope so, mate. I think he's got, it has to work. I think, you know, Lawrence Stroll is putting a tremendous amount into the Aston Martin project. I think that's the most experienced driver they've had in that team, whether you go back as Force India or Racing Point, whatever situation the team's in or whatever it's been named, it's always in essence been the same personnel inside that team. So the facilities they're investing a lot in those going forward. Now, whether he'll be there to see the fruits of that work, I'm not sure. But I think that he can put them on the right way in different paths to sort of make sure that culturally they're correct, seeing that the right culture that he performed so well in Red Bull, the culture that he didn't really maybe enjoy as much at Ferrari, which is not the only one. I mean, the Ferrari, being a Ferrari driver is challenging. So I think the culture side, the enthusiasm, the intensity, the longevity too, in terms of retention of people, he'll understand how that works. And then the technical side, of course, in terms of bang for buck, what to focus on. So yeah, I think these, by the way, these type of cars are not really his favourite, and that's not an excuse, because you need to have, like Hamilton, he doesn't really have any weak cars. He's always quick and everything. Seb really liked, and this is not protecting my own turf, I think it seems that he liked the cars which are, you know, much more narrower tyre, aerodynamically a little bit more unstable, where these bigger cars, more load, more grip, more downforce. I just think that it's not a type of car that he particularly has a good relationship with. So now, let's see if he can sort of lock next year with Aston, because it'd be good to see him finish his career with a bit more momentum instead of how he's been running with Ferrari.
Mate, thank you very much for the insights. We really appreciate it, Mark.
No worries, bud.
It's Mark Webber joining us on the Summer Grill here, brought to you by KTM, of course. To check out the KTM 2021 range, go to the official website. Some amazing motorcycles there, and there's lots on their Facebook page too in terms of great lifestyle rides. We'll be back with another episode real soon here on speedcafe.com. KTM are giving away some awesome summer essentials each week. Stay cool with a KTM Powerwear pack featuring a shirt, cap, thongs or jandals, sunglasses and lanyard. To enter the draw, all you need to do is subscribe to Speed Cafe in the sign up box below this video. It is that easy. And we'll have another episode of the KTM Summer Grill for you tomorrow. Stay tuned.